This is the crux of why people yo-yo diet. This is also the crux of why people chronically just date and don't, commit to a relationship, or they go on flings, because as soon as someone feels a negative, that is the trigger for a lot of people to then go, cool, I want to get away from that uncomfortable feeling. And they're not thinking, what can I move towards that I really want? What financial goals do I want to set? Who's the ideal partner I want to be with? What does my ideal physique and health look like? They don't do any of that. This is uncomfortable. Let me do whatever I can to get away from this. Hey dads, welcome back to the Fit Dad Club podcast. My name is Jason, and today what I'm going to be talking to you about is why you yo-yo diet, or maybe why you have yo-yo dieted in the past. And there's a ton of different reasons why you might have. There's a ton of different reasons why anyone might have done a yo-yo diet, right? There's the lack of self-belief, doing unsustainable plans. There's plenty of reasons why. The biggest thing that I want to talk about involves the two different kinds of motivation. So before we get stuck in, if there's any topics you'd love us to cover, let me know. And then, make sure you give us a 5-star rating and review if you like what you hear and you want to hear a bit more. So the two different kinds of motivation are being motivated by pursuing something. So motivated by pursuit of pleasure or gain, right? Looking for, trying to achieve something good that you want. And there's fear of pain or running away from something that you don't want. Those are the two kinds of motivation: toward motivation and away from motivation. So you're either motivated by wanting to get something, or you're motivated by wanting to get away from an uncomfortable feeling. And this is the crux of why people yo-yo diet. This is also the crux of why people chronically just date and don't, commit to a relationship, or they go on flings, because as soon as someone feels a negative, right? Let's say that it's you're feeling broke, or you're feeling lonely, or you're feeling fat. That is the trigger for a lot of people to then go, cool, I want to get away from that uncomfortable feeling. And they're not thinking, what can I move towards that I really want? What financial goals do I want to set? Who's the ideal partner I want to be with? What does my ideal physique and health look like? They don't do any of that. They just go, this is uncomfortable. Let me do whatever I can to get away from this. And it doesn't mean you're always going to end up in the place that you want to be. People try and get away from feeling broke by, working really hard, or, we're going to sell a bunch of stuff. We're going to stop spending money. But the problem is, all these habits may be well and good, but as soon as you are in a position where you don't feel like you're broke anymore, then all of a sudden you start spending money again. You start getting Uber Eats, your shout for beers at the pub. All of that kind of stuff happens because you no longer feel broke. You no longer have the negative to drive you because you're not in a shit financial position. Same thing with relationships, right? You find someone, you're like, oh yeah, this is all right, because you just picked them to fill the loneliness. You didn't, want to be with them because they were going to be the best partner for you and you really were in love with them. You picked them because, hey, if I'm with this person, then I'm not going to feel lonely, which is not the way that you want to be living your life, right? You're just constantly running away from a negative feeling. From a fitness perspective, that means as soon as you jump on the scale and you feel fat, you look in the mirror and you feel fat, you feel uncomfortable, you feel unhealthy, you feel whatever it is, then you go, fuck, I'm going to do something about this. And you get motivated. And away from motivation is good and it's powerful in the short term, but it is a short-term band-aid. It doesn't last long. It's not going to push you to ultimately get to the physique and the look that you want, or the health that you want, because you need to know what that actually looks like. For a lot of people, they're just doing it because they don't want to feel fat anymore. Problem is, 4, 5, 6 kilos in out of the 10, 15 kilos they may have to lose, they stop feeling fat, right? They're starting to go for more walks. They're starting to do more exercise. They're starting to feel pretty good. And then it's like, all right, maybe I can just take the foot off the brake a little bit. I'm feeling good. I can have a pizza. I can have a couple of beers. I can do this. And then the pain isn't there, so the motivation's dropped. They're feeling pretty good about themselves. And there's a great quote that I love, which is, the opposite of greatness isn't, desperation. It's not being low, it's mediocrity. Mediocrity is really the enemy of greatness. Because when things are just okay and things are going well enough, that's when people don't take the action they need to take their life, their health, their money, whatever, to the next level. Oh, these things are okay. People settle for okay when they could have more. People settle for just, I feel okay in my body. I don't feel like I used to. I don't feel shit. I'm not as big as some people, but who cares? Are you where you want to be? And it begs the question of, have you gotten clear on where you want to be? Have you gotten clear on where you would love your health to be? You know, your finances, the way you're raising your kids, your marriage, your life, all of those sort of things. You know, there's big questions in that. And they're beyond my ability to answer. But what I can say is you need to have a clear vision, a clear goal for where you want to take your health and fitness. Otherwise, you are consistently going to gain and lose the same 5-10 kilos over and over and over again for pretty much the rest of your life. Because you're going to feel fat, you're going to do something about it, you're going to feel fat, you're going to do something about it, you feel fat, do something about it. And in between all of those is just going to be that period of, oh, it's all right. And then those 5 kilos will slowly creep back on, maybe a few more kilos. You start to get a bit too comfortable where you are, then you get a little bit more overweight, and then you get a little bit comfortable there, and then you get more overweight. And that's how it happens. It's not like overnight, you know, we just decided to put on all this weight. It was accumulation of things, time and time and time again, constantly, a little bit of overeating, a little bit of overeating, a little bit of overeating, get bigger, get a little bit more comfortable there, get bigger, get a little bit more comfortable there, until some people are like, oh, fuck, I'd be happy if I could just be at 100 kilos. It's like, well, for your optimal health, you might be best off at 90 kilos, you might be best off at 85, but they've gotten so comfortable being that much higher in terms of their weight, in terms of the effects of it on their health, you know, even that's a win. And hey, it is a win, but what I'm saying is you need to set your sights a bit further. You need to stop yo-yoing. You need to stop focusing on just the short-term motivation, just the away from motivation, which is great in short bursts, right? It's the reason why you put your hand on a hot stove and you pull your hand away. You don't pull your hand away because I really want my hand to feel nice and cool and fresh. No, you're going, oh, fuck, that's hot. Get away from the pain, get away from the heat. And that's how we're designed to act. But we need to have something bigger and longer in the long term for us to focus on that makes us go, I want to stick this out. It's got to be compelling enough for you to go without all those extra beers, without having the big pizza nights, without having the burgers, without just eating for the sake of eating, right? There's got to be you going, the goals that I'm pursuing, the things that the things that I'm motivated by are more important and are bigger for me than the short term, right? Because we also have short-term pains and short-term motivators in terms of peer pressure and in terms of social situations. It's like, oh, if I don't have these beers, or if I don't get in, like, you know, if I don't get loose at this party, or if I don't, you know, have the meals that are put in front of me and eat it all, I'm going to feel uncomfortable, right? And it's a short-term pain that we're trying to get away from, but it contradicts our long-term goals. Fundamentally, the reason why people transform is because the long-term goals that they set are more important for them than the short-term distractions. And that's fundamentally where it's got to be. You can talk about it as being your why. You can talk about it as a long-term goal or a vision that you've got for yourself, but you've got to know in what direction you're heading and when you will succeed. Because if it's like, oh, I just want to get a bit fitter. Well, it's like, hey, if you run 100 meters today and then you run 110 meters tomorrow, congratulations, you're fitter. But that's not the goal that most people want. It's like, I want to have more money. Cool, I'll give you $1. You have more money. You need to be more specific with what your goals and your intentions are so you know where the finish line is. Because a lot of people, when they start this journey, the finish line, it's not about where the finish line is. It's like, just get me away from that negative line. Get me away from feeling fat. And then you're just kind of lost in the wilderness. Whereas if you have a finish line and something you're aiming towards, cool, I want to be like under 100, right? Or I want to be 90 kilos. That's why these little milestone goals are really important, because it gives you something to aim for. It gives you something to work towards and go, this is my drive, this is what I'm going to achieve, and it's important for me to get there. And that's where we bring in the stuff around the kids and the family, right? We're doing this for our kids. We're doing this to set an example. We're doing this to live longer, fundamentally, to live longer and be stronger so that we can run around with them when they want us to run around with them, so that we can get involved in their sport, you know, when they want us to. So, and there was actually I saw the other day when I was scrolling Instagram, I found a guy who was talking about how he relates to his sons when they're growing up and they're going through, you know, their sort of angry emotions and when they're feeling that sort of physical frustration that they want to get out physically. He's like, cool, put on your shoes, we're going to go for a run, right? Because there is actually something in men and boys physiologically where we need to move physically before we can access certain parts of our brain, when we can express emotions. Movement helps express emotions, so especially for boys. If you want to be able to be that support for your son, you know, you got to be able to at least go for a run, go for a jog, go for a quick walk, right? Getting more intensity out there, setting an example for him for physical movement will help him with his emotional regulation too. So it's all these reasons why we want to do this. You know, fundamentally, we just want the best lives for our kids. That's why we're here. And we do that by setting an example. We don't do that by ignoring them and saying, hey, I'm going to spend 4 hours in the gym every night and I'm going to be an absentee dad because I'm busy doing bicep curls. No, it's showing that you're committed to your health, you're committed to your wellness and your fitness. And people often bag out the gym as like, oh, you're going to spend all day long in the gym. It's not the gym, it's the fucking meals, right? It's the food that we eat. It's the crap that we put in our mouths. And that's what makes us gain or lose the weight, is really what goes in there. You can work out 2 to 3 times a week for half an hour and maintain a pretty decent level of fitness, right? For most people. But people like to point that out as, oh, that's the reason why. It's not about that. It's about doing it for your kids. It's about setting an example. It's about keeping yourself in great shape so that you can leave them with better habits than you were left with or than you have, so that you can be the best version of you for them, right? And that is fundamentally why people yo-yo diet. They don't have a big driving why. They don't have a big reason why they're doing this. They don't have something to latch onto to go, this is my end goal. This is why it's important to me, and I'm going to work at it and pivot and do whatever I need to do in order to make it happen. So that's been me for the Fit Dad Club podcast. Hopefully you got something out of this. If you have any questions about it, send us a DM, shoot me a message on Instagram, and I'm always happy to connect. Until then, peace out. We'll see you next week.